All right, let's talk about the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics came off a season where they won 61 games. Obviously, they were second in the East to the 64-win Cleveland Cavaliers, and all signs were pointing to Boston potentially repeating, or at the very least getting back to the conference finals or NBA finals in the 2024-25 season. Round one, they were able to make quick work of the Orlando Magic in 5 games, even though that series said a whole lot more about how much Orlando needed Jalen Suggs in that series because he was out for the whole season with, I believe it was a foot or knee injury, but regardless, Orlando needed him, and now he'll be back for the season. However, round two was not only the backbreaker to the Celtics season, but it altered the course of the Celtics timeline with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Now, what do I mean by that? One of the main flaws with the Boston Celtics last season, and then in years past before they won the 2024 chip, and obviously before they got Drew Holiday, was they were so heavily reliant on the three ball. They were another example of living by the three and dying by the three. And in the first 2 games, they took a combined 50 threes. And I think they only made 20 out of said 50. Jason Tatum unfortunately blew his Achilles in Game 4 of that series, and ultimately, even though the Celtics won Game 5 at home, they ended up getting the doors blown off them in New York City that Friday night, ultimately ending their season. And this past offseason, they had to do cost-cutting trades, meaning that they had to get a lot of money off their books so they could avoid the second apron. Why is that a problem? For some context, y'all, they extended Drew Holiday after the 2023-24 season. They gave him a 4-year extension, which obviously some people say it was a bad contract given the amount of money and given Drew's age at the time. But also, you had to take on Porzingis' contract, and he was going to be a crutch for the Boston Celtics luxury tax should they have hit the second apron, and they would have been in cap space hell. What I talk about when it came to Luka and the Lakers, and why I liked the fact that we gave him he accepted a three-year deal from us instead of a 4-year deal, which would have amounted to $220 million for Luka. We would have been in the same type of fiasco, luxury tax-wise, like the Boston Celtics were this past season. And in those aforementioned trades, number one, Drew Holiday was traded to the Portland Trailblazers for Anthony Simons, I believe a second-round pick as well. Run that by me if I'm correct or not. And then Kristaps Porzingis was traded from Boston to Atlanta in a 3-team deal that involved the Brooklyn Nets. The Celtics got George Niang in a second-round pick. The Celtics would trade Niang back to the Utah Jazz for their rookie R.J. Lewis Jr. And then the Nets got Terrence Mann in the 22nd overall pick this past NBA draft. So Boston has a different dynamic now. They don't have a defensive-minded starting point guard. Rather, they have a more offensive-minded starting point in Anthony Simons. And they still have Derek White and Jaylen Brown, even though they could probably start D. White at the point guard. But I don't know. I think I can trust Joe Mazzulla will figure that out. But regardless, Jaylen Brown and Derek White will be the focal points of Boston's offense this season. Now, for some interesting stat lines, Jaylen Brown has averaged 27 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists in the 39 games without Jason Tatum in his career, obviously leading up to this point. And Jaylen's overall record without Jason Tatum is 22-17. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention, they also signed this guy named Chris Boucher from the Toronto Raptors. Obviously, he's a proven champion with Toronto. I haven't watched too much of Boucher's highlights, but from what I've seen, he's a good shot blocker, good defender, good three-point shooter. I think he can replace the production of both Porzingis and Horford, especially when Jason Tatum comes back. I think Boucher will do just fine in that Boston Celtics system. But let's see how Boston kind of matches up with the East, because right now I do not see Boston being a top 3-4 seed in the East. I could be wrong, though. Jaylen could have an MVP year, and Derek White could have an MIP year, aka a Norman Powell-like year, because I didn't expect Norman Powell to be a final. I don't think he was a finalist because of the amount of games he missed, but I think if Norm played enough games for the Clippers, Norman would definitely won MIP. Derek White is going to be the same thing. I think he'll put up Norman Powell-like stat lines, and I think he might be most improved player because I think he's able to stay healthy. But obviously, if both Jaylen and Derek White go down with injuries, their season's over. They have no chance to get into the playoffs. But I could be wrong, though, like I said. However, I can see this team being a version of the 2021-22 LA Clippers. I made a video in the 2021 offseason talking about what are the Clippers going to do now. Obviously, y'all can go look at that in my timeline. But I think the thing there is, why do I compare them to that Clippers team? Because the Clippers, they came off a season where Kawhi tore his ACL in the 2021 playoffs. and they had to deal with Paul George as the focal point of the offense. But PG tears his shoulder, and he missed a majority of the season outside the last select games, plus the play-in tourney against the Minnesota T-Wolves. Mid-season, Reggie Jackson, Marcus Morris, and then incoming Norman Powell from that 2022 trade deadline ended up being the focal points of the LA Clipper offense, which obviously it only did so much because they got outed against the New Orleans Pelicans that year. I feel like this version of the Boston Celtics will be essentially the same thing. I think if Jaylen Brown gets hurt, Derek White will have a much bigger role in the offense. Again, he'll have like I said, he'll be what Norman Powell was for the Clippers all these years, especially this season, or he could be what Reggie Jackson was for the Clippers in that 2021-22 season. Another team they could be like, and this is probably the worst case scenario, the 2019-20 Golden State Warriors. Why do I compare them to that? Because just like Boston, Golden State came off a season where they had to lose, at the time, their best player in Kevin Durant, or arguably their best player, because obviously Steph Curry is the greatest Warrior of all time, but at the time it was KD. They lost him to a torn Achilles as well, and then on top of that, they lose Klay Thompson in Game 6 of that finals to a torn ACL that same finals. Now, obviously, in that 2019-20 season, it was going to be similar to what we saw at the beginning of last season with Golden State before they got Jimmy Butler. Steph Curry was the focal point of the Warriors offense with everyone else being role players. Obviously, they got D'Angelo Russell at the time, and Anthony Simons can be what D'Lo was for the Warriors with Steph and without Klay. But that's a whole nother topic. But in that season, Steph broke his hand, and he virtually missed all the season outside of one game against Toronto, I believe, and that was before the pandemic hit. So virtually, Steph missed all that season. And like I said, if Boston loses either Derek White or Jaylen Brown or both, the season's over for Boston. They're not going to make the playoffs. Those two are going to be the reasons Boston has a shot at making the playoffs. And let's say they do make the playoffs. I don't think this Boston team, even without Tatum, is going to be an easy out because Jaylen, he's the Finals MVP for a reason. Now, I do believe that Finals MVP should have gone to Tatum, but Jaylen Brown also balled out of his mind during that playoff run when they won the championship. And Jaylen has shown that he could pull his own weight without Tatum. Obviously, the record, it ain't the prettiest, but in a lot of these games I'm looking at on StatMuse.com, he's had plenty of 30-point games. He's had 40-point games, and he had a 50-point game in 2022. So there are plenty of games where Jaylen will absolutely do just fine without Tatum. I think as long as he is still healthy, as long as Derek White is healthy as well, they have a shot to make the playoffs, whether it's being a top 6 seed or cracking their spot via the play-in tournament. And again, this Boston team will not be an easy out in the playoffs. At the very least, they could be a 7-game exit in the first round. And if they do make it past the second round, surprisingly, they might get 5-game by, let's say, the Cleveland Cavaliers, the New York Knicks again, or if anything, because I don't want anyone sleeping on this team, the Detroit Pistons, or even the Orlando Magic as well, because I think those will be the top four teams in the East. And the whole mindset, if you're a Celtics fan watching this, the whole mindset should be this. In 2026-27, when Jason Tatum comes back, the mentality should be, as long as him, Jaylen, Derek White, and Peyton Pritchard are all out on the floor, because those are your 4 core players. And then obviously Sam Hauser, I think he's one of them as well. I mean, you'll definitely see a lot of production from guys like Drew Peterson and Baylor Schneiderman. But as long as those 4 main guys, I guess if you want to throw Hauser in there, that's fine. But as long as those 4 guys are on the court together and they're playing, the mindset should be, no matter what roster, we can beat anyone and everyone, anywhere, anytime, everywhere, every time. And we've seen it before from them in multiple playoff runs, whether it was with Drew Holiday or Marcus Smart being the main point guard, or maybe the case if Anthony Simons is their long-term starting guard, or a guard off the bench that could complement Peyton Pritchard, or whatever the case may be. We've seen it with Boston multiple times with Jaylen and Tatum healthy. They could beat anyone and everyone, anywhere, anytime. That's how they won the 2024 championship. Because here's the thing, bro. When the Celtics are truly locked in, they're truly a team to beat in the Eastern Conference. Even when they flamed out in the second round in the fashion they did, I still believed at the time that Boston was the team to beat in the East. And I think that sentiment will come to life next year when Tatum comes back. You know what I'm saying? So that should be the mindset come 2026-27. And I think, and I've been seeing a lot of posts about Jason Tatum looking pretty healthy. Like, I saw a picture, and I think if y'all follow Bleacher Report, there was a picture of him at the New England Patriots facility visiting Drake May and the boys to get ready for the upcoming NFL season. And a lot of people are saying he's been walking without a boot or crutches, which is great. I'm happy JT is progressing well with his injury, considering it's been 3 months since he suffered that devastating Achilles injury. That being said, he should not suit up at all for the 2025-26 season because Kobe tried doing the same thing. But unfortunately, two things were clear. Number one, the Lakers stunk at the time, so there was no reason to play Kobe unless, just for sentimental value for Laker fans. But he was not the same player. And number three, it was clear that it only messed up his career even more because it was clear that he was not the same player. And if they rushed Tatum back, that's going to be the same thing, and he could risk re-tearing that, and it could really, really mess up his career. You feel me? That should not happen at all, and I think the Celtics front office and the Celtics doctors are really smart about how they're handling Tatum's injury. I don't think they're going to pull something as stupid as that. And the thing is, I understand the whole medicine thing, and I know there's advanced technology and advanced science that can help players heal from their Achilles faster, but everyone's bodily anatomy is different. That's why Tyrese Halliburton is still on a crutch and a boot, and he's still on that walking bike thing where you have that leg injury, that little walking bike thing, and Jason Tatum is not. And I'm going to speak this into existence right now, y'all. At the tail end of the season, like post-trade deadline, like February, March, April, we are going to hear a report from either Shams or NBA on NBC, NBA on Prime, or whatever the heck, Bleacher Report if anything. Jason Tatum will be cleared to play 3-on-3, 5v5, but again, that will be at the end of the season or at the tail end of the season when Boston's already positioned to make the playoffs or maybe set to miss the playoffs or whatever the case may be. We will hear reports about that, which will be great news going into 2026-27. That will not mean they are going to play Tatum a single minute this season. He'll still be in street clothes. He'll still be on the bench. He'll probably be jumping around, being excited for Anthony or Jalen or Derek White or Chris Boucher, whatever the case may be, whatever his teammates do, Tatum will be on the sideline cheering for his team. But again, that does not mean whenever we hear the news that Tatum will be cleared to play 3-on-3 or 5v5, that will not mean he will suit up to play in the 2025-26 season. And when Tatum comes back in the 2026-27 season, and then you have Jalen, Derek White, and Peyton Pritchard playing with Tatum, the Celtics will be back to being the best team in the East and the team to beat in the East. Again, even after their playoff flameout against the Knicks last year, I always thought the Celtics were the team to beat in the East. And it's not just off the fact that they won the championship, is that it's because they've proven multiple times, even when Miami was the first seed in 2022, Boston was the team to beat. It's just, again, when it came to the Heat, they played way too down to Miami plenty of times. That's why they lost in 2023. And again, Jason Tatum hurting his ankle didn't help matters. But they were able to capitalize in 2024 by winning the championship. And I think with those four, they will be back to being a championship contender. It's definitely not going to be this season. Right now, like I mentioned earlier, the Celtics will be either these two teams, the 2021-22 LA Clippers or the 2019-20 Golden State Warriors. Again, those teams didn't have their star players for most, if not all, of the season. One team ended up missing the playoffs because that team ended up being bad because of the fact they were decimated by injuries. The other one still remained a competitive team, and they were able to be a number 8 seed at the very least until they got kicked out of the playoffs via the play-in by the New Orleans Pelicans and the Minnesota Timberwolves. All in all, man, I do expect this year to be a down year for the Boston Celtics, bro. I don't expect this team to go far into the playoffs. Again, their ceiling could be play-in exit, not or let me backtrack on that. Their floor could be a play-in exit, not miss or not make the playoffs at all. Their ceiling could be a 7-game first round exit or a 5-game second round exit if they even make it that far. And if they manage to somehow make the conference finals, I will be truly surprised. And again, they've exceeded expectations either way. Again, if they can make it as far as to a Game 7 of the first round, or at least be a second round exit to one of the top teams in the East, that's an accomplishment, and that's going to be a positive sign for Boston going into 2026-27. But we're just going to have to sit back and watch. But what do you guys think? Obviously, I'm a Laker fan. I'm not rooting for the Celtics at all. I'm just calling it like how I see it. But what do you guys think? Do you guys think the Celtics will be good? Do you guys think they'll be trash? Do you guys think they should, tank the season? What do you guys think? Is Boston gonna be good or not? Are you confident that Boston will make some noise in the playoffs? Could they be a sleeper team? Let me know y'all thoughts in the comments below. Again, more off-season videos coming soon. I'm gonna try doing more gameplay videos again with the whole downtime with like NBA free agency and all that other good stuff. But until then, that is the end of this video. I'm X. Deuces.